opened them all up. Oh, no, wait, you did that already. And I don't know if you've heard, that's Johnny Phil told us.
So I was just informed that the successor to that hedgehog in Germany, that successor also known as Puxatawny Phil, has apparently predicted 6 more weeks of winter. Which frankly, for us in California, if that means 6 more weeks of some rain, I'll say prayers answered. Indeed. I don't see too many folks lingering on the patio. I'm very happy to say that thanks to the wonders of technology and the perseverance of Kevin Martin, we are streaming this annual meeting. And we didn't announce this broadly because we needed to make sure it was going to happen, because, you know, these technological things can be a challenge, but it is going out to our friends in YouTube land. So friends in YouTube land, we are glad you're with us this morning. If you'll join me on what is page 8 of the annual report for 2024. I'd love for us to pray this prayer for vestries, which has been adapted for this annual meeting, and pray it together. Lord, you called the disciples. Oh, come on, y'all. Don't leave me hanging. Page 8. Those past vestry, who's about 3/4 of this room. Oh, page 4. No, page 8.
There are 2 different copies of the annual report circulating, a short form and a long form.
The long form, which is what I am working off of, on page 8.
Many of them have gotten the short form.
Oh, good to know. The top of the agenda in any form. I'm hearing page 4. Holy moly. Okay. But like 3/4 of you know this prayer anyway, because you've served on the vestry. So you said it 36 times. Page 4 or 8, the prayer for vestries. Let's try this again. Lord, you called the disciples to put their nets into deep water, to reach new depths as you stood beside them. Be with us now as we continue that mission in all we do as a parish. Fill us with your spirit. Help us to know that we are only rowing the boat, not steering it. Lift up our sails with the breath of the Holy Spirit, and our souls with the peace that only you can give. Remind us that the whole communion of saints encircles and upholds us. Ours is but a mission for a short time, Lord. So help us to do our work faithfully and joyfully, knowing that we will be guided by your love if we only say the word. Come, Lord Jesus, come. Amen. And with that, I call to order the annual meeting reflecting on the year 2024 at St. Peter's Episcopal Church in Del Mar, California. Now, rather than going straight into the minutes of last year's meeting, I'd love for us actually to move to the nominating committee report so that Heather and her team can do the counting that they do have to do with some dispatch. And I invite Rick Ochaki to come forward, and vestry and convention delegate slate members be prepared to stand and be identified. In fact, can you come up here so people at home can see you? Which is great.
Thank you. So we have 4 vestry candidates for 4 vestry positions beginning in July of 2025. The vestry positions nominated are Rodney Crooks, who cannot join us today, Anne Marie McCormick. Please come on up. Thank you.
Come on up, Anne Marie. The people at home can't see you. Come on, please. Come on up. Come on up.
Leilani Taylor and Paige Theraman. So these are vestry candidates who will be taking office, if elected, in July of 2025 to serve 3-year terms. Since we have no other candidates and we have 4 positions, I would accept a motion to approve by acclamation. And second? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Congratulations, candidates. Welcome aboard. Okay, you may be seated. We do have 4 candidates for diocesan convention delegate, for which St. Peter's is allowed 3 delegates. So what we're going to ask you to do, I'm going to introduce the candidates. I'm going to ask you to vote for 3. The top 3 candidates will be our delegates. The remaining person will be the first alternate, prepared to serve in the case that one of the elected delegates is unable to fulfill the duties or requirements of the office. Does that make sense? Which always happens. Anyway, so our candidates for diocesan convention delegate, Jeff Carson, please come on forward and come forward, candidate. Bob Halleck. Joseph Rodenheiser. And J.B. Scranton, who is not here, but he has accepted. So these are your 4 candidates. Please vote for 3 on your ballot and turn your ballot into Heather. Thank you very much, candidates. We'll get back to you with the winning tally.
Okay, thank you so much to all who offered to serve. It's so important. It's how we get things done in the Episcopal Church. So thank you for that. In your either long or short form report, our annual meeting minutes 2024, they're on page 9 of the long form. I'm guessing by default, they're on page 5 of the short form. We've had several eyes on these, but we still welcome yours to make sure that these reflect the meeting you remember attending a whole year ago. This is where having the video will help us, because we'll be able to Charlie got those minutes right? Yeah. But assuming that these minutes reflect the meeting you attended a year ago, I would accept a motion to accept these minutes. Is there a second? All in favor, please signal by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed or abstentions? Does anyone else have a ballot for Heather? No ballots. Okay, great. Thank you so much for counting for us. All right.
Election closing once. Election closing twice.
Which means Heather's going to give her comptroller's report when she comes back. Okay. There's a reason these aren't numbered. Order is clearly merely a suggestion. At this time, I want to invite forward our senior warden, Rick Oshaki.
Bless you. Bless you. All right, thank you very much. So on page 16 to 17, you can follow along. Here's the senior warden's report. In the long form, that's right. I think we're out of pages at that point in the short form. Page 7. Thanks to your faithfulness in prayer for our faith family at St. Peter's Episcopal Church, enthusiasm in service to all our ministries, and generosity in giving to our parish, we have much to celebrate for 2024. Last year, Fran Friesian, Katrina Hunt, Megan Callan, and Kirby Baker completed their terms as vestry members. We are grateful for the positive impact they made in sharing their time, talent, and treasures with us. They were succeeded by Della Halleck, Cinda Lucas, Winnie Holbrook, and J.B. Scranton, who began their terms in July. Also in July, Charlie Coffey was elected as junior warden, and in August, as a bonus, he was elected clerk. Thank you, Charlie, Della, Cinda, Winnie, and JB. Oh, I wanted Heather to hear this. She has to watch the videotape. Throughout the year, our controller, Heather Vaden, kept the vestry and parish up to date on the state of our financial health. We are blessed to have Heather in this role, and I want to express my appreciation for the excellence with which she does her work. Let's give her. I also want to thank Casey Thompson for his service as chancellor. His perspective and wise counsel contributes much to the good work of the vestry. You have heard me talk about this before, but in August, we had an outstanding vestry and staff retreat. Karen Riggs led several sessions using the Myers-Briggs type indicator assessments that vestry and staff had completed before the retreat. And Karen also participated in vestry meetings in September and October to continue building on our understanding of how our team personality type, what success looks like when we work together, how we succeed in our ideal workplaces, and boosters and potential pitfalls associated with our specific personality type. We will be continuing to have conversations based on this work in the new year. The vestry is working with our facilities manager, Abigail Alwine, and the property committee on the Maiden Lane retaining wall and 14th Street project. And you can see the illustration to that on page 16 of the long form report. This will be an important focus in the coming year. Come on up, Tori. One of the joyful highlights of the year was the discussion of Madeline Polhill's call to ordination in the Episcopal Church. Following a Zoom meeting with Madeline in December and a conversation about the discernment process led by Mother Page, the vestry voted unanimously to nominate Madeline for holy orders for the priesthood. Please keep Madeline in your prayers during this part of her spiritual journey. As you read through the long form of the annual report, I hope you see how our ministries and programs share tangible evidence of our love of God and our love of neighbor with our community. Please prayerfully consider if you are being called to offer your own particular talents in a new way at this time. Finally, I want to offer a heartfelt thanks for continuing to remember the rector, staff, wardens, and vestry in your prayers. It makes a huge difference in all of our lives, in our ministry, and I'm truly grateful for that. Thank you. Is this supposed where I ask for questions? Are there any questions about anything? Yes. Or on the way out. There are some long form. Yeah. Yeah. Sure. It will be posted if it's not already. All right. Thank you very much. Mother Page.
And I do encourage you to read your way through, whether you download it off the e-news or read the hard copy. We do have plenty here, so thank you for asking again. This annual report is not like past annual reports. A lot of you put extra effort into telling the story of your ministry in really beautiful ways, and it shows. There was not a lot of just use what I did last year because it's the same that Catherine received. So it's a pretty neat story of our life together. I will go ahead and leap ahead, since Heather is still counting, to my report. Oh, we have one. We have a vote we missed. We got to make sure all the votes are counted.
She's in a secure, undisclosed location.
Okay. Well, beloved, 2024 was quite a year. It was devastating and sad in some ways, and glorious and hopeful in others. Filled with the love of Jesus and buoyed by the breath of the Spirit, we pastored our larger community, living into our call to be God's people in this time and place in compelling and new ways. 2024 was the year we buried far too many of our beloved friends, family, fellow parishioners, and larger community members. Curious, I looked into our archives and past parochial reports, and we have to go back to 2004 to see anything close to this many funerals. And in 2024, most of these happened in the first part of the year. It was extraordinary. We were grieving, and we were supporting and loving people who were grieving. We welcomed the larger community and created a safe place for those needing a place to mourn and to celebrate the lives of their loved ones. Some of our efforts and intentions for 2024 had to be delayed or were less emphasized because this year, God called us to bury the dead and to love their loved ones in their grief. And so we did. And just as an aside, if you were in church this weekend, you heard me say this is my 28th anniversary of the ordination to the priesthood, which is staggering. But I've been remembering this whole year and even today and yesterday as we buried Bob Jellison, one of my early mentors, as I was maybe getting ready to do my first funeral, saying, Paige, it's what we do. We bury the dead. No questions asked. We bury the dead. And so we did. What was truly remarkable is how we came together. In some contexts, this would have been a recipe for divisiveness and dysfunction. Instead, you all showed up in love. You showed up to help make funerals happen, to make receptions happen. You showed up to backfill in those times when others were swamped with the work of preparing for and carrying out all those funerals. You were patient when you saw our staff and clergy swamped by death-related pastoral care and funerals and your own priorities gently put on pause for a time. You saw balls drop and you either caught them before they hit the ground or caught them on the rebound or gave us a hug when the ball went rolling into the weeds. And some of them did. God strengthened us as a community. And God is so good. Unless you think I'm just saying this, whenever I tell clergy colleagues about the year we had, they always ask me with a little bit of fear in their voice, is everything okay? Because some clergy would have been eaten alive during a season like this. But that didn't happen because all of you are who you are and who you are as a community. I do not take that for granted. In addition, 2024 included another wave of staff turnover and reconfiguring. It seems like these come in 4s or 5s. We had the retirements of Vicki Harney, our receptionist and office manager, and Deacon Bob, and Valerie Vieger, our thrift shop manager, and the East Coast relocation of Mary Vaya, our children and young families minister, all between May and August. Christmas morning was Paul Holt's last worship service with us as accompanist. And so 2024 was also a chance to welcome new friends and colleagues. Ballard Paul Hill joined us as a seminary intern for the summer. Gigi Miller was here as deacon intern. Bella Lorenzen is now at our front desk. Is Bella here today? She was going to try to come. And Krista Bonanno is our new thrift shop manager. I want to take this moment to let you welcome Krista. Krista, could you stand? Woo, Krista! Thank you to Krista and John, who is our communications volunteer for the thrift shop. All those fun Instagram posts that you see are John's creation, and we thank you for that. Thank you for being with us this morning. We know you could be reading the paper, eating a croissant, and drinking a mimosa, but you're here, and we're grateful. And we have a new deacon with us as well, Deacon Pete. Where is Deacon Pete? There's Deacon Pete. And in early 2025, Will Ossing joined us as accompanist, but this is about 2024. We'll let you cheer Will on next year when he's had a whole year of this great adventure of accompanying us on this journey. I don't think Will is with us today, but we'll see if we can get him here next year. He's a busy, busy musician. So you may remember we did a survey in 2022 called Renewal Works, and it was all about spiritual vitality, particularly with the markers of how we love God and love our neighbor. And so with our renewal works plans on our minds and having just read Canoeing the Mountains, we were prepared to pastor the community in new ways. We did not anticipate that much of that pastoring would be in the area of grief and mourning, but there we were. In addition, our partnerships with local organizations such as the Windsor School and Delmar Village Association continued to grow. In January, we pastored the community by hosting Interfaith Shelter and engaging new partners such as Teen Volunteers in Action. In October, we pastored the community by hosting a challenging conversation about memory loss that was attended overwhelmingly by members of the larger community. On November 5th, we pastored the community by welcoming those coming to exercise their right to vote, offering coffee, snacks, and friendly faces. When they were packing up and wrapping up their work, the Registrar of Voters thanked us, and they credited our loving and friendly presence for keeping some moments of November 5th that might have been a bit tense from becoming so. Pastoring the community took a very playful turn in December as our youth and their leaders hosted the snow event for the Delmar Village Winter Festival and had a chilly and fun time had by all. Some of you got buried in snow because the kids were like, hey, this is just like being on the beach with sand, and the person with his boots filling up like snow saying, this is not like sand. Thank you. Later in December, we hosted a Christmas service for special needs families in partnership with the Winston School and Beacon North County. All throughout the year, we welcomed new members to St. Peter's, and it's been a delight to help them find their place in the community. We've continued to pray together, to study, to serve, and to offer beautiful worship to Almighty God, celebrating and sharing the liberating, life-giving love of Jesus. We've continued our ministry of raising up disciples of all ages, and we've been able to do so because you all have stepped up to offer your gifts and your leadership, and most of all, your love. By December, it was really feeling like we were reemerging. Yes, from the pandemic, but also from the early part of 2024, when what we did was help people die and love their families and bury their bodies. By the end of the year, it felt like a new season had begun. This included our robustly attended Christmas celebrations, which felt like before. I wonder how long that's going to take before doesn't mean what it means right now. There was so much joy. And you all have been incredibly generous with your resources of wealth, wisdom, and works. And Heather will speak more about this in her report. Your generosity is humbling, and it's transformative and life-changing. You are truly making a difference. Thank you. Thank you for all the ways you showed up this year. It was not an easy year, but it was a beautiful year. And I'm so grateful that since I had to go through our version of 2024, I went through it with all of you. Thank you for loving God and loving your neighbor, for being God's people in this place, for showing up with the love of Jesus and being the church of God's mission of love, transformation, and grace. Do you have any questions for me? There will be other times you can ask questions, but wanted to open up that possibility. Okay. Well, Heather Vaden is our incredible comptroller. We ascertained you're going to have to go back and listen to the video feed. Rick Ochaki, a gentleman of his generation, said the video tape. But you did get a nice name check in Rick's. But Heather, the reason people are so generous with us is they trust us with their gifts of wealth. And they trust us because you do your job so well. And we're grateful. So Heather, welcome.
Thank you. Let's see. Kevin's back there.
Kevin's back there.
Okay, Kevin.
Thank God for Kevin.
Okay, Kevin, can you turn the screen on? There it is. Oh, okay. Let's start. All right, so it has been a pretty incredible year financially. We received total revenue and transfers of $1,492,126, and that is above our plan of $1.4,464,000. We were able to balance our budget to zero by moving 69,761 of operating income into a designated fund to be carried over to the future. So pretty incredible. Just everything seems to be above budget. Our parishioner giving, 742,604, which is $38,000 above budget and $80,000 above the prior year, which is amazing. Our facilities use rental and rectory rental was actually below budget. It was $124,427. We had overestimated what our parking revenue would do last year. And mostly because we had to pay for those new meters. I'm sure you have all noticed, we now do have park and display up top. We are expecting that to bring in a fair amount of revenue next year. And if you don't have a parking pass, please get one from me. 2025 parking pass, they're new. So the city started really checking, I think yesterday, February 1st. Okay, the thrift shop, our amazing thrift shop, which with our new manager, maintained what our old manager had put in place and then some. It was awesome. $360,156. I always tell people that is with free inventory and mostly free labor. Tons of volunteer hours. It is an incredible, just mind-blowing place. So it was $30,000 above budget and $41,000 above the prior year, which was incredible. Senior Services Corporation granted $28,000 to St. Peter's last year. Our endowment fund gave 4% or $64,666. We did not spend the whole endowment 4% last year, so some of that will carry over. And then the Rasmussen account gave the operating 4% of their account was $129,461, which was used for operations. Okay, and this is just showing what is up from 2023. Parishioner giving up 12%. Facilities use was up 10%, even though it was below budget. Thrift shop receipts up 13%, and the outreach giving jar, so that is the giving jar in the thrift shop, and Operation Book Support. That was $29,000. That's the monthly focus that the thrift shop works on. So amazing. And that goes to the monthly focus. It comes in and it goes right back out to the places that we support. The gifts for outreach. St. Peter's operating budget set aside 5% of prior operating revenue with $64,945. And then so this thing I said, gift shop, giving jar, and monthly focus, that is also with what parishioners donated on the patio. So yeah, just incredible numbers for outreach. Okay, this is a graph of our expenses, where our expenses go. 60% of what comes in is for staffing. So clergy and lay staff, and then music is another piece of the staffing. And then the other property also is quite large. That was $195,000. Oh, and then our diocesan pledge was $137,000. So that's where the money goes.
And that was so high because this was the last year we were being assessed.
Yes.
PP.
Yeah, for our pandemic funding, we then had to pay 10.5% of that back to the diocese. So this year was a high assessment from the diocese. It is less in 2025. And our assets. So we ended the year with $8,935,626. Our operating, that's a lot of money. That's money in the bank. Operating cash accounts, we had 342,211. And of that, 262,000 of it is in designated funds. So we have now opened a money market. We did that right at the end of the year. It's a liquid money market. So if we need to pull from those designated funds, we can do it. But that money's now earning interest. Our Schwab reserve account, 60,629. Our endowment account that we pulled money out of for property, 2,298,630. That's up 157,000, even though we pulled over 60K out of it, which is just market performance. And then the Rasmussen Fund is 3.477662, and that's up 175,000 after pulling whatever we pulled, 120 grand. And then I'd love to point out our church assets on the books. Our church is worth 2.6 million, and our rectory 128,000, which just cracks me up. Okay, and then the budget for next year really follows suit to the prior year. Our giving is up, a projected increase, a projected decrease, actually. I'm gonna have to look at that. Our total revenue is projected at 1.554 million. And then our endowment transfer and Rasmussen transfers are up. They're 4% of the rolling balances. And then we're projected to use 47,000 of our 2024 operating overage for operations next year. Pledge cards, 599,573 from 151 members. So that is up from 584,000 last year from 144 members. So those are really good indications, good numbers. And if you have not pledged yet, we have pledge cards. Email, contact me, pledge online if you are so inclined. And then this is another graph. It really does follow kind of the same breakdown as last year. And let's see, expenses, budget notes. Oh, sorry. What did I do? Sorry. Oh, man. Okay, just one more thing I wanted to say is that our lay staff is budgeted to go up. We are planning to hire a lay associate mid-year. So that is increasing the lay staff numbers expense for next year. And I don't know, anything else? Oh, and we did have a 2.5% cost of living adjustment for our people. What did you see?
2023.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's it. And yeah, are there any questions on this? It really was a great year. Yes. Rasmussen? It was a bequest from prior members that we got at November of 2023. And it was a $3.2 million bequest that we received. We've set it up as a separate fund that right now we are spending 4% for sustainability and for the mission and ministry of St. Peter's. Yeah, you're welcome. Anything else? All right, thank you.
And I just need to say out loud, the report we just heard is not what many annual meetings are going to sound like around the church. The fact that we could even say we ended the year and had to move money into a fund to balance, the fact that our pledges are up as much as they are, that parishioner giving was up as much as it was, that we have the ability to do the things we're doing and have a balanced budget and not have a deficit budget, because a lot of churches would just do a deficit budget to try to do what they're trying to do. The fact that we don't have to do that is amazing. And I just want to say that out loud because I want to make sure you don't take it for granted how fortunate we are, how blessed we are to be able to be in the situation we are in. And it's because of your generosity. It's because of the incredible work of the thrift shop. It's because we have a beautiful resource and facility that we're using creatively as a resource to bring in funds. And your willingness to try new things is allowing that all to happen as well. And the generosity of those who remembered St. Peter's because they knew they couldn't take it with them and left a bequest to St. Peter's. The traditional endowment is used to fund the we call it campus care. And the Rasmussens, after talking to the people who knew and loved the Rasmussens, those folks all agreed they would not want that money just sitting there not doing God's work. And so the vestry's been engaging it for mission and ministry. Remembering St. Peter's in your legacy planning is important as well. And maybe, just maybe, our successors will be talking about how generous you were at allowing them to live out the ministry they've been called to by God in this place. So keep that in mind. I suspect we have an election. Oh, wait, I see Nancy's hand.
I just had a question. I was thinking of instances in the Bible where they talk about churches supporting other churches that are troubled or in great need. And I'm quite sure that there are churches in our diocese. Why can't we take some of the excess to help some of those churches?
That's a great question. That is a great question, Nancy. And the answer is we are. The answer is a good part of our diocesan giving, that $137,000 we gave to the diocese in 2024, does exactly that. It is absolutely helping churches that cannot support their mission and ministry on the resources their own parishioners bring in, including a church like St. Luke's, which is primarily a refugee congregation. They do not have the liquidity to do all that they need to do to be God's people in that part of North Park. And so our support of the diocese, that's why I will say it till I'm blue in the face, friends. You've heard me say it before. That diocesan giving is the largest gift we give to a ministry outside our parish. I know we tend to think of outreach as the partnerships we have with like Camp Stevens or Refugee Net, but honestly, the partnership we have and the generous gift we make in that diocesan giving is doing exactly what you're speaking to. And a couple of years ago, the outreach committee saw their way to supporting St. Mark's in a particular way, because St. Mark's is one of those communities. It's in City Heights, another community that has a tradition of being a refugee community in San Diego. And they wanted to do some things better. As we know, we've seen it here, that good administration is ministry. Good administration allows us to do God's work well, and in a way that allows God's ministry to thrive. And they wanted to do some of those things better and not limp along. And so our outreach committee has given them a grant that's decreasing over 5 years in partnership with St. Luke or St. James in La Jolla to do some of that administration ministry better. And so we're doing that apart from our diocesan giving. We're ministering in that way as well. So I promise I didn't ask Nancy to ask that question. But every year you can ask that question, Nancy, so I can give that answer. Because it's true. We look at that $137,000 when we think it's not a tax, friends, in any way, except that it's what we all do together because we can do more together than we can do separately. We have to treat it like a gift because it's really doing God's work. So thank you, Nancy. Other questions? Yes, Judy.
What is a lay associate?
I'm glad you asked. So we're calling this position a lay associate because the person who has been invited to fill it and agreed to fill it is not yet ordained. And that is one Madeline Paul Hill. Yeah, I thought you might react that way. So she will be coming on board and doing the things that a theologically and pastorally trained individual who is not yet ordained can do, overseeing formation ministries, participating in our preaching life. I mean, she's a fabulous preacher, participating in our pastoral care life and the other work of the church. And we anticipate, we hope, we think we're counting the months, right? 18 months is about a year and a half, but from the time she was named nominee and postulant till she gets ordained a priest. And then she will be a priest associate. but we're rebuilding that associate position over really a 3-year period, which feels more sustainable than trying to take it all on at once. We don't want to find ourselves in a position of getting over our skis and not being able to sustain it. And so she's coming on board for half a year as a lay associate, probably a full year as a lay associate before she's ordained to the diaconate, probably a 6-month diaconate, that's canonical, and then she'll be ordained a priest. Bishop, yeah, thank you. I didn't ask Judy to ask this question, but I'm so glad you did. Bishop Susan has said that even though we are technically her sponsoring parish, really Trinity Princeton is the parish that has helped her discern and raised her up for this ordained ministry. And so Bishop Susan's allowing her to stay here after she's ordained, which is not the norm. So I'm grateful for that as well. And thank you to Joseph for helping her realize she's an Episcopalian. And, so Joseph and Madeline will be getting married in July, and Joseph, yay! He will have to no longer be on the vestry after she joins our staff, sadly, but he can be a diocesan convention delegate. So there's that.
That's a great segue.
It's a great segue. Are there any other questions before we make that segue gracefully? Okay, Rick, would you let us know how this election went?
So we have 3 delegates chosen for convention: Jeff Carson, Bob Halleck, and Joseph Rodenheiser. And JB Scranton is our first alternate. So thank you very much, candidates. And I just wanted to follow up a little bit about what Heather and Mother Paige were saying, again, to say thank you for your generosity in giving to the parish. Many of you know that I am a professional fundraiser in the nonprofit arena. And this year has been a continuation of a downward trend in giving across the nation and in many different sectors. And so the generosity of this parish blows me away and allows us to do the ministry that we do, which is share the love of God with each other and with a world that desperately needs it. And so I am just so pleased. I'm humbled by the giving and the generosity, and I'm grateful that you are responding to the Spirit's call. So thank you for that. I love that Heather gets to report those good results, but it starts with you opening your hearts and then giving as the Spirit leads you. So thank you.
So in the last year, as Rick mentioned, we had several retirements. Vestry retirees were Fran Friesen, Kirby Baker, Katrina Hunt, and Megan Callan. And Jay Hansen retired after more than 30 years as our lead lector. Jay, thank you for your service. You may remember when the bishop came, she also gave him the Servant Ministry Award to acknowledge his ministry among us over these years. He's still available to be a coach to lectors who want to lector, and we're just grateful. And Sandra Wilbur retired as a Stephen leader. In that role, she was the person who did intake for the Stephen ministries, who would meet with people who wanted a Stephen minister and ascertain which of our Stephen ministers who was available would be the best fit. And she and Harry moved further away from St. Peter's in the last year. And so it was a time when Sandra felt like she needed to let that ministry go. But if you think about it, drop her a note and say thank you as well. We have a fun tradition at St. Peter's, and it is one that I inherited, and but it's kind of neat. And this is one of those things where I actually want to ask, if you're new to St. Peter's in the last year, could you stand? The last year. I think there's Deacon Pete and Chris. Chris is here too. Thank you, Chris, for being here. It's good to know who our newest friends are. Now I'd ask everybody to stand. And if you've been with us at St. Peter's for 5 years or less, please sit down. If you've been at St. Peter's for 10 years or less, please sit down. If you've been at St. Peter's for 15 years or less, please sit down. Or 20. Or 25. 30, 35, 40. Pat Carson remains standing. I'm sorry. Oh, and Brian. Brian, do we need to keep going? 55 years this spring. Woo! Sorry, I couldn't see you in the shadow up against the post. I apologize. It used to be a standoff between Nancy Atherton, Pat Carson, and Dory and Craig Starkey, I think. Used to be that, yeah, because Pat was actually baptized here. That's fun. Are there any further questions? Am I forgetting to do something essential we'll regret that I didn't do when we look at the minutes? Friends who are watching from home, we're sorry you can be with us today, but we're glad that you tuned in for the annual meeting. And I invite you to pray. The Lord be with you. And also with you. Gracious God, we give you thanks for the privilege of being your people in this time and this place. For the love you've shown us in the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus Christ, for how you've placed that love in our hearts and given us the fire to share that love with the world. We ask that you bless us as we leave this place. Help us to be your light in this world. Amen. Amen. And with that, our annual meeting is adjourned. Thank you so much for coming.